Hello there, this is Mikhail or Michael speaking. First of all, I want to thank all who decided to support me financially on Patreon. Thank you, friends, and have a blessed day. So I will start with Bakhmut first. Situation here is as follows. Russians continue to attack along these streets in attempt to first capture the post office and Olympic school, and perhaps link up with those Russian gains to even out the front line. Like I said in a previous video, with Russian success on this flank, the fate of Khramova can be sealed. If Russians are to take Olympic school and post office and further expand their control to somewhat of this area, they can fire upon Ukrainian troops within Khramova and help Russian efforts in attempt to capture it. Not only that, if they continue to successfully attack here, they will basically envelop the citadel area and establish fire control over the only roads that lead to it. Speaking of citadel area, there is a lot of interesting news coming from here as well. It is being reported that overall situation in this area is not good for Ukrainians. Because of the heavy bombardments of Russian artillery and aviation, a lot of buildings within this area are turned into a rubble. This rubble is laying all over the place, covering roads, thus not allowing Ukrainian transports to supply Ukrainian troops within this sector. There's also videos and news that suggests that Ukrainians are retreating from this sector right here and this sector as well. Now, it would make sense, the less percentage of the city Ukrainians control, the less troops they can deploy here. They don't want to pack this city with their troops and make it too dense. This will not help them in their defense effort and only would make it easier for Russian artillery to spot those Ukrainian troops and destroy them. So it's logical that Ukrainians are withdrawing some of their troops. There are some reports suggest that mostly elite troops are retreating and the only ones left are regular soldiers and mercenaries. It would seem that regular soldiers are fighting within these areas right here and mercenaries are fighting in here near the Olympic school to the northwest of the citadel area. Now, situation here to the east of citadel area is interesting. Some reports suggest that as a result of Russian attack along Yevleeva Street, Russians were able to capture this set of buildings and establish foothold within this overall part of the citadel. If those claims are to be true, and if we take into the consideration Russian success here to the west of Tchaikovskaya Street, we can see a Russian attack developing in attempt to reach the citadel area here. As you can see, this is where the congestion of Ukrainian roads are located, and Russian success within this area will perhaps seal the fate of the entire defense of this sector. Soldiers will not fight or cannot fight without ammunition and support. With that, this gray area might fall under Russian control, and there are reports that Russians are advancing further along this street using their initial success. However, time will be the judge of those claims, and perhaps in a day or two we will see whether it was true or not. Then we go here. This is the Korsunskova Street, and this is the Tchaikovskaya Street. For a long time now, Russians and Ukrainians were battling out for the control of the area in between those two streets. As you can see, this area right here is made of high-rise buildings, make it difficult for Russians to storm. Some time ago, they were able to establish control over it, but were thrown back. Russians were able to establish some footholds here, and as you can see here, so overall you can see a pocket is developing, and there is also reports that Ukrainians are retreating from this sector, but once again I must say that probably they are just retreating some of the troops. As the area of their control to this side of the Tchaikovskaya Street is shrinking, they must retreat some of their troops so they won't overpopulate this small area. Russians had also conducted some limited military operations towards Ivaniivsky, but without any success. Fighting towards Khramova continues, but it would seem with a careful manner, as Russians are expecting more success here and as well as at 00506 road. Situation here remains difficult and fog of war here is extremely thick. It would seem that there is a lot of back and forth going on, with Russians and Ukrainians occasionally throwing each other back, capturing their positions, so it's hard to say who's winning here in this area. Russians are also fighting here in the outskirts of Bogdanivka and advancing towards Grigorivka. Fighting in Orikhovo-Vasilivka continues and along the E40 highway in attempt to control this forest patch. In the Severny front, Russian attacks were recorded at the direction of Verkhnye-Kamyansky and Belogorivka and Grigorivka. Fighting also continued in Serebryansky forest and along the entire Kremenna front without any significant change. Once again, mostly it is artillery duels and air raids. Then we go to Avdiivka. Situation here is been of a great change. At the time of recording, nothing had changed on this map. However, we will quickly jump to a pro-Ukrainian map to show you what I'm talking about. So, surprisingly enough, Ukrainian map had admitted to Russians capturing village of Kamyanka. That is being a subject of a debate for a long time. So, this is the situation of yesterday. And this is the situation of today. As you can see, this much change indicates extreme heavy fighting within this area. It would seem that Russians were finally able to capture this village, however were slightly pushed here to the southeast of it. The Russians are now fighting for the control over this road, but with the fall of Kamyanka they will have easier time, and perhaps we could expect a Russian counterattack here, and Russians soon reaching this road altogether. Overall fighting here around Krasnogorivka continues, as Russians are continuously attacking towards Novokalinova. Then we have Russians attacking from Apitny and Vodani towards Avdiivka and Severny. However, the intensity of that attacks had died down. It would seem that Russian army here is going through a rotation. So most of those attacks are simply probing attacks to disrupt Ukrainians and not allow them to breathe freely. Russians are striking Lastachkina, Orlivka, Tonenki and Severny in attempt to compromise Ukrainian rotation and supply. Situation in Pervomaisky have not seen any change, the same as situation in Nevelske. There is also some change here in Marinka. In the last 12 hours, Russians were able to advance from the main street and captured this much territory. So the stalemate in Marinka had moved. There were some action here to the north of it as well as to the south in the last month, but the center of the city was unmoved and untouched for about half a year. It is also reported that Russians are heavily bombarding the outskirts of Marinka, not allowing Ukrainians to reinforce and resupply their comrades within the other remaining part of Marinka. For example, here I will show you a photo of Marinka. First of all, I guess the POV of that photo is something like that. We can see the center street and the water canal here. So this is the canal here. This is the street. So by the photo claimed, Russians are controlling this portion right here, but as you can see, the whole city is basically a no man's land. It is unclear how much troops both Russians and Ukrainians have within Marinka, but at this point there's literally nothing to fight for. There is still some settlements there in the back which Ukrainians can use for defense, so after Marinka, fighting will continue further on. Situation in Pobeda have not changed, same with Novomikhailivka, just as in Vuglidar. However, there is an indication of heavy fighting here in between Pavlivka and village of Shevchenka. It would seem that as a result of positional style warfare, Ukrainians were able to establish bridgehead here and have dug in. Overall, it doesn't look like a threat to the Russian forces, as Pavlivka is well defended, as well as Shevchenka, but I guess we will see where this goes. City of Vuglidar is being shelled heavily, with more and more buildings collapsing or becoming unusable for defense. Anyway, this is the end of the video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please consider supporting it with a like, comment and a subscription. Also, don't forget to push that notification bell, as it will inform you immediately of my new update. Please support me on Patreon. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be great again.